Hey folks, Eddie Lazar here with Educated Veteran. Again, to keep everybody up to speed what's going on, I belong to several different groups, and I go through and I just find questions and or concerns that people are addressing on social media accounts and groups, LinkedIn, Facebook, things like that. And I present them here, and then I give you my opinion. And again, it's just my opinion. It's based off of my experience and what I've dealt with in my career. So the first one, I'm going to change names here. We're going to call him John. John says, well, I am on my way out of the Army. I've sent out job apps, of course, and I've got my first call and interview. I'm super nervous. It's a good job in the area we want to live. It's what my wife and I have been looking for. I did a simple phone interview, but the real one is next week. It's the only reply I've gotten so far, and I'm probably the best job I applied for. I don't know. I'm just really nervous right now. And I found this very interesting. There wasn't really a question in here from John, but the point that I wanted to make and why I grabbed this as a topic of conversation is, and he talked about, I did a simple phone interview, but the real one is next week. A lot of people aren't familiar with the hiring process, and so that's what this little discussion is going to be. I want to educate you. So it costs a lot of money for organizations to hire, or what's called hire new acquisitions, new employment, new employees into the company. The cost of hiring is extremely expensive. One of the things that they do to help mitigate or reduce the cost of bringing new people on board is by screening out the potential candidates and only bringing in those that could potentially move on to the next level. The hiring process, and it depends on the industry, depends on the company, it depends on the hiring manager, that position, depends on the position itself, many factors, okay? But typically, the hiring process is going to go through different stages. It usually starts with a phone interview or a series of phone interviews. Maybe the first phone interview will be with like a human resources representative. They're just kind of sifting through all the candidates that applied, and then they're going to do a quick phone call just to kind of flesh out some of the really important key details that they're potentially looking for in a position to fill. And then they will maybe schedule those, they'll narrow that pool down to a smaller number, and then that smaller number will then move on to maybe perhaps even the next phone interview with maybe the hiring manager themselves or somebody within that department to kind of vet out those candidates and narrow it down even more. And once they get down to 5, 10 or so candidates, maybe less, maybe more, then they'll bring those folks in for an in-person interview. And you may even have different iterations of in-person interviews as well, before you get all the way to the end of the hiring process when they've finally settled on a candidate that they want to then extend an offer to. Now, once they extend the offer, of course, then it's up to the candidate to either accept the offer, counter offer, or decline the offer. I won't get into those right now. I just want to talk about the different stages of the hiring process. Now, what John talks about here is I did a simple phone interview, but the real one is next week. Now, a simple phone interview is still a real phone interview. I don't care how simple it may sound or feel to you when you're on the call. Maybe that simple phone interview was only 5 minutes, and maybe you didn't get into a whole lot of deep questions about the job or the role. So you got off the phone and you felt like, I don't know what that was all about. It was really simple. It must not have meant a whole lot. But then you get offered, or then you get told you're going to have another phone interview, and you feel like maybe that's the real one. Everyone ever played the game Zelda, right? Remember the old Zelda on the Nintendo? Any game for that matter, right? You start at level 1, and level 1's pretty simple. It's pretty easy. And then you level up. You pass that first level, that interim level, and you move on to the next level. And every level you move up, it's longer. The boss at the end is harder to beat, right? It takes more lives if you die, whatever the case may be. As you're progressing through these different levels, as you level up, it becomes increasingly more and more difficult. But the catch is, if you don't pass level 1, the simplest level, you get all the way to the boss and you don't beat that level 1 boss, you don't move on to level 2. No matter how easy or how simple level 1 is. If you don't beat it, you don't move on. All right, so the simple interview that John's talking about here, the fact that he got the next phone interview, the real one he's calling, it's because he passed level 1. He passed the simple interview, the simple phone interview that he referenced at the beginning. So folks, anytime you're in the funnel of a new hiring process, in the funnel means you've submitted your resume, you're getting calls to do phone interviews or Skype interviews, or being called to come in for face-to-face interviews. When you're in that process, no matter who you talk to from that company, never consider it to be simple. It's just a gateway to move on to the next level. It may seem simple, it may seem easy, but it still really matters. So you need to take those seriously, okay? That's the point I wanted to make. This is Eddie Lazary helping you become an educated veteran.